your child to have a place to sleep, a full stomach, a chance to grow up healthy and safe. This month.
You must awaken now. You are the melanin carriers on this planet. You were the original 12-stranded people, and you were given that privilege to a whole lot of work in time.
Connected
It
to
was not
iPhone.
something given to you by chance. Because you fell from grace and sought to make better than your creator, you suffered by that you created, and then also was brought to your planet that you created in a higher form. In other words, once you think that you are a god, you must act god-like, not sometime, but all the time. Because once a god falls short, there are so many things that are not godlike, just waiting to lapdog you up and tear you apart, that you're open then to the whole holocaust of the cosmos, not the fake holocaust on earth. The real Jews, as you found out, are you. The 13 tribes had nothing to do with just earth people. It embodied Lucifer Maldek, the exploded planet, which rained down upon you those lost souls, which destroyed a whole planet in your system that you helped sustain. Many of you are reincarnate Maldekians, Luciferians, and you probably don't even want to deal with that, but if it is truth, it will come back to haunt and vibrate. I'm style triggering all your opening points. We'll see which ones run with it. In the great role of play that is a planet, people are brought to it to learn and to show in physical embodiment, physical reality, in a lifetime, what they have learned in the heavens of earth. What they have learned on the spiritual and mental plane is of no value until in a time when given a physical body with physical challenges, you see what you can do really under pressure. Time and time again, some of these best people failed. And time again, as they failed, it lowered the vibration of the planet until the planet was put into a coma. The planet now wants to awaken. It is almost awakened, and the more you begin to channel in successfully this new energy through your pineals, through your melanin, your energy fields will attract more and more of cosmic light. Let's put this another way. Our sun was nothing more than a step-down transformer. Some people call it, if you're into physics, a transducer. It is now a capacitor. It is a step-up transformer. Whereas at one time it filtered out great light and energy that came from deep space to our planet so that we could live under a sun. And you remember the saying, there's nothing new under a sun. And there isn't. In 59, it completely reversed its polarity, and now it is sending forth energy, augmented by the kind of what they call cosmic and gamma rays that are coming into it. This year, by this summer, you will begin to hear more and more about sunspot activities, solar prominences, perturbations, and how our sun is a deadly enemy about to annihilate us all because it is going to burn us up with X-rays and gamma rays. Not all of us. Not all of us. Some of us. And who are the us's? Whoever are the chosen. How are you chosen? You choose yourself by following the disciplines you know you should have been doing, not tomorrow, but yesterday. By doing the readings and the research and taking the time to spend in meditation, the things you thought you should have done 5 years ago, you start them immediately tomorrow. By not being threatened or coerced, you do because of the goading mechanism within your own spiritual consciousness, that you know you should be doing, as though a policeman was there or mother was looking, and you do better than both of those authoritarian figures because you are arising. Once you channel in that light, for every one of you, you're worth 1,000 of non-channelers because they're the dead. They will not awaken. You cannot wait for them. If you do not do that in mass, you will be subject to the technical prowess of a people who are soulless that now have control of this planet. And if you're ready to go up against them, I bless you. If you're ready to go up against them alone, I feel sorry for you. For you will learn a lesson that will stay with you forever. You cannot match them in their technology. Forget it. What you knew subconsciously, and what you know even as you hear the tone and tenor of my voice is true, is that some way or another you could raise a spiritual quality that could match that in some kind of way. You just didn't know how to go about doing it. And you know that you had lost something and you wanted it returned. You have that privilege now. AIDS and every other man-made deceptive agent to stop you from progressing physically and cause your journey of life to end quickly will only be thwarted when you can raise your vibrational rates enough where none of those things can exist within that contact field. And then those that met it and made it will meet out its suffering and suffer the same thing that they started. The planet cannot help you till you vibrate high enough to take the light. It's just that simple. Other than that, you will be destroyed just like those that are trying to destroy your planet once again.
Bitch, hold my bags. I ain't talking about no Apple when I'm in this bitch with Max. Leggy Phasals, I don't shop no sex. I'm finna kick your door and then take all your raps. I don't give a fuck about no goddamn flag. You see me cash shoot at everybody ass. I went for writing songs up in my fucking class and charging $1,500 for a burst in cash, little bitch. Hold up, wait. I keep them diamonds locked up in my safe, cause these hoes might come over to scope out my place. And dudes running my crib while she giving me face. Hold up, wait. Know that Glock gets equipped on my waist. Trap a dick to my gun like it's female and gay. And I shoot like a Batman and Matthew Golay. Hold up, wait, man, to do you like Fortnite 360 no scope. Then I'm taking this shit that you motherfucking own. Handle lick on your straps, your possession is soap. Hold up, wait, don't go talk all that shit, then go hit on my phone like you trying to link up. I'ma tell your ass no or a yes, but I'll send your ass up like a hoe. You need to do better when you sending me a feature, cause I'm getting money, therefore I ain't getting meaner. Darby and this bitch, she almost gave your boy a seizure. $1 billion pieces, so we making over here, yeah. Ransom is I'm stepping in New York, no 9/11. Kick you all like number 11, shout out Millie Bobby Brown. Towing on that weapon, I'ma send you up to heaven. How your whole life disconnected if I ride news all down. But shout out the hoes in my groupies. How she thought that they did that my totally. I make her quiet like movies. They have her sleep, you all thought she got roofied. My team is a rat in the Uzi. Some ghosts in this bitch is what you see. I'm trying to get Teslas as 2C, so I don't do shit for free, don't be stupid.
This is the sun. As far back as 10,000 BC, history is abundant with carvings and writings reflecting people's respect.
I've been so I thought there was gonna be something different.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
There's likely to be another Dark Ages, which it seems, my guess is there probably will be at some point. I'm not predicting that we're about to enter Dark Ages, but that there's some probability that we will, particularly if there's a Third World War. Then we want to make sure that there's enough of a seed of human civilization somewhere else to bring civilization back, and perhaps shorten the length of the Dark Ages. I think that's why it's important to get a self-sustaining base, ideally on Mars, because Mars is far enough away from Earth that a war on Earth, the Mars base might survive. It's more likely to survive than a moon base. But I think a moon base and a Mars base,
it's cold as hell. I'm about to go grab my heater.
Help regenerate life back here on Earth would be really important, and to get that done before a possible World War III. Last century we had 2 massive world wars, 3 if you count the Cold War. I think it's unlikely that we will never have another World War again. There probably will be at some point.
Or if we have another one, it'll be the last.
Yeah, it just could be radioactive rubble. So, again, I'm not predicting. It just seems like, well, if you say given enough time, will it be? Most likely, given enough time. This has been our pattern in the past. I really believe in the zeroth law of Asimov's zeroth law. You take a set of actions most likely to support humanity in the future.
Talking about your time allocation, I think one of the things you spend an awful lot of time thinking about, I know, is artificial intelligence. It's something that you and I have as a shared interest, and it's something that our audience is interested in as well. The question here is, a lot of experts in AI don't share the same level of concern that you do about the danger of AI.
Fools.
What's
famous last words?
What specifically do you believe that they don't?
Well, the biggest issue I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do. And they think they're smarter than they actually are. In general, we are all much smarter than we think we are, but much less smart, dumber than we think we are, by a lot. So this tends to plague smart people. They just can't. They define themselves by their intelligence, and they don't like the idea that a machine could be way smarter than them, so they discount the idea, which is fundamentally flawed. That's the wishful thinking situation. I'm really quite close to, very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. You can see this in things like AlphaGo, which went from, in the span of maybe 6 to 9 months, it went from being unable to beat even a reasonably good Go player to then beating the European world champion, who was ranked 600, then beating Lisa Doll 4-5, who had been world champion for many years, then beating the current world champion, then beating everyone while playing simultaneously. Then there was AlphaZero, which crushed AlphaGo 100-0. And AlphaZero just learned by playing itself, and it can play basically any game that you put the rules in for. Whatever rules you give it, you literally read the rules, play the game, and be superhuman for any game. Nobody expected that rate of improvement. If you ask those same experts who think AI is not progressing at the rate that I'm saying, I think you will find that their predictions for things like Go and other AI advancements have their batting average is quite weak. It's not good. We'll see this also with self-driving. I think
confidence a boost. Get more nutritious soil, hardier plants.
Probably by end of next year, self-driving will encompass essentially all modes of driving and be at least 100 to 200% safer than a person by the end of next year. We're talking maybe 18 months from now. NHTSA did a study on Tesla's Autopilot version 1, which is relatively primitive, and found that it was a 45% reduction in highway accidents. And that's despite Autopilot 1 being just version 1. Version 2, I think, will be at least 2 or 3 times better. That's the current version that's running right now. So the rate of improvement is really dramatic. We have to figure out some way to ensure that the advent of digital superintelligence is one which is symbiotic with humanity. I think that's the single biggest existential crisis that we face, and the most pressing one.
And how do we do that? I mean, if we take it that it's inevitable at this point, that some version of AI is coming down the line, how do we steer through that?
Well, I'm not normally an advocate of regulation and oversight. I mean, I think one should generally err on the side of minimizing those things. But this is a case where you have a very serious danger to the public. And so therefore there needs to be a public body that has insight and then oversight to confirm that everyone is developing AI safely. This is extremely important. I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot. And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Far. So why do we have no regulatory oversight? This is insane.
Well, it's a question you've been asking for a long time. I think it's a question that's come to the forefront over the last year, where you begin to realize that it doesn't necessarily, I think if we've all been focused in on the idea of artificial superintelligence, right? Which is clearly a danger, but maybe, a little further out. What's happened over the last year is you've seen what we call artificial stupidity. We're talking about, algorithmic manipulation of social media. Like we're in it now. It's starting to happen. How do we, what's the intervention at this point?
I'm not really all that worried about the short-term stuff. The things that are, like narrow AI is not a species-level risk. It will result in dislocation, in lost jobs, and the sort of better weaponry and that kind of thing. But it is not a fundamental species-level risk, whereas digital superintelligence is. So it's really all about laying the groundwork to make sure that if humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very carefully. Very, very carefully. This is the most important thing that we could possibly do.
Yeah. Building on that, other than AI and the other issues that you're tackling, transportation, energy production, aerospace, what issues should our next generation of leaders be focused on solving? What else is coming down the line?
Well, I mean, there are other things that are on a longer time scale. And obviously the things that I believe in, like extending life beyond Earth, making life multiplanetary. I'm a big believer in sort of Asimov's Foundation series, or the principle that you really want to, I recommend reading the Foundation series, but it's like if you know that there's likely to be, well, you don't know, but there's likely to be another Dark Ages, which it seems, my guess is there probably will be at some point. I'm not.
Yeah, so I. Sure, I got advice for you. So I've never read Isaac Asimov's The Foundation series, but the audiobooks are on YouTube, and I started listening to the first audiobook. I think it's roughly 10 or 11 hours worth of audio, and it's pretty fucking good. And so it's set way in the future, thousands and thousands and thousands of years in the future. And the human race has spread out and colonized different star systems, and we're multi-planet. And there's this guy who comes up with this new type of math that's done properly can predict the future. And he predicted that from their time point, 5,000 years from their point, there would come another dark ages that would last for 30,000 years. And they're like, what? The empire can never fall. We have all these planets and this and that. It'll never happen. He was like, trust me, if we don't do something now, in 5,000 years, we're going to plunge into darkness for 30,000 years. And so the whole book is about this scientist and how he has to try to implement all these schemes that will, because he's not going to live for 5,000 years, but he needs to implement some type of plan that will keep going through the generations. And he basically said, we're not going to be able to stop it, but we can probably shorten it from like 30,000 years to maybe 12,000 years. But yeah, and we're listening to Elon Musk talk about AI and his fear of AI in World War III.
Predicting that we're about to enter dark ages, but that there's some probability that we will, particularly if there's a third world war. Then we want to make sure that there's enough of a seed of human civilization somewhere else to bring civilization back. And perhaps shorten the length of the Dark Ages. I think that's why it's important to get a self-sustaining base, ideally on Mars, because Mars is far enough away from Earth that a war on Earth, the Mars base might survive. It's more likely to survive than a moon base. But I think a moon base and a Mars base that could perhaps help regenerate life back here on Earth would be really important, and to get that done before a possible World War III. Last century we had 2 massive world wars, 3 if you count the Cold War. I think it's unlikely that we'll never have another World War again. There probably will be at some point.
Or if we have another one, it'll be the last.
Yeah, it just could be a radioactive rubble. So, again, I'm not predicting. It seems like, well, if you say given enough time, will it be most likely? Given enough time, this has been our pattern in the past. I really believe in the zeroth law of Asimov's zeroth law. Take a set of actions most likely to support humanity in the future.
0 to 60 may throw your hair back, but 60 to 0 will save your life. Get $60.
I started listening to that audiobook too. The Expanse is based off of a book, yo. Yeah, so it's like they're not on another planet, but you got Earth, you got a space station, and then you have like the mining colony that's out in the asteroid belt or some shit like that. And like it's basically 3 different worlds, and everybody's trying to do their own thing. But you know what? I might have to watch a couple episodes of that shit tonight, The Expanse. I started listening to the audio on that shit, yo. Because my man who I listen to a lot, Isaac Author, on science and futurism, he gives a lot of his favorite books and authors, and that was one of them, The Expanse. And I actually wanted to check out the new Star Trek series just because the lady captain was one of the characters on The Walking Dead. So I wouldn't mind seeing how she does in this new role as a starship commander. Fucking hands are extra dry. Okay. The Expanse. But everyone sees that it's coming, and we could have been a space faring race long ago. Like, okay, you went to the moon. We should have just kept doing shit like that instead of war. Like, bitch, we could have been had a moon base and all this shit, but motherfuckers just want to go to war and blow each other up on this planet. Let's just kill all the life on this planet. Fuck the stars. Fuck space. That shit doesn't matter. Humans are so stupid. Yeah, you humans are so stupid. Oh yeah, and my man wanted some tips on some oil colors. You still in here, homie? No? My bad, dude. I be getting sidetracked sometimes and forget to answer questions and stuff. This is art and education. It's supposed to be teaching and learning. I think one of the best movies that kind of showed the immaturity of the human race, if there were other species out there, was the remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves. And I can't remember the whole movie, but I know the premise of it was that, you know, there was aliens made contact with us to tell us, knock it off, you know, and I can remember just like one conversation that the alien was having with the humans, and not word for word, but he basically said, like, look, this is a Goldilocks planet. There's not a lot of these out there in this immediate vicinity of space, in this little corner of the Milky Way. You know what I'm saying? So y'all got it made. There's not a lot of planets in that Goldilocks zone that can keep an atmosphere in liquid water, which makes life. You know? You're just right. You're at the perfect spot next to your star. Now, if y'all don't stop fucking this planet up, polluting the air and fucking up the ozone layer and atmosphere and polluting the waters on this planet, we'll just kill all y'all. We'll wipe your whole species out, and we'll bring another species here who want to live, you know, who wants to thrive and live on a nice planet that has oxygen and water. Yeah? And basically like, yo, just stop it. What the fuck are you guys doing? It's like children over here fighting, like, knock it off, go sit in the corner. You know what I'm saying? But that was the whole movie, like, yo, humans, stop. You have one of those magic jewels and you're fucking it up. Now we'll fucking destroy you and let somebody else take care of this shit. Man, they 2-3 other planets that's dying right now. And not because of anything they did, is they just old ass planets. You know? Ecosystems failing, the stars dying or whatever. I'll let these motherfuckers move here. Man, Earth got another couple billion years. This section good for a while. We'll move somebody else in this shit for some millennia. But it's crazy. To the point where Elon Musk is even saying, like, look, maybe we should build a moon base or a Mars base just in case World War III, because we're going to need something to survive. As if, you know, this shit will be the end. Man, motherfuckers really, when a smart ass motherfucker like that say some shit like that, you need to be worried. If he think motherfuckers who look like him are going to blow up the planet and he's trying to figure out how to get to fucking Mars, you should be worried. I'm worried. I'm worried. You know what I'm saying? That's why you want to go to Mars, Elon? I thought you were just an adventurer. You want to go there and see if you can grow some potatoes on Mars or something. Nah, this motherfucker trying to escape World War III. What the fuck? Alright, I'm just going through my news, through my YouTube feed, yo, whatever pops up on my front page. So I've been scrolling down. There was several different videos I was going to try to watch. Oh, Noam Chomsky.
Well, thank you all for coming. I've been filming in the Marshall Islands, which lie north of Australia in the middle of the Pacific. Now, whenever I tell people that, they ask, where is that? And if I offer a clue by referring to bikini, they say, oh, you mean the swimsuit. Now, few people seem aware that the bikini swimsuit was named to celebrate the nuclear bombs that destroyed Bikini Island. 66 nuclear devices were exploded by the United States in the Marshall Islands between 1946 and 1958. That's the equivalent of 1.6 Hiroshima bomb explosions every day for 12 years. Bikini is silent today, mutated and contaminated. The palm trees grow in a strange grid formation. Nothing moves. There are no birds. The headstones in the old cemetery are alive with radiation. My shoes registered unsafe on a Geiger counter. Standing on the beach, I watched the emerald green of the Pacific fall away into a vast black hole. This was the crater left by a hydrogen bomb they called Bravo. The explosion poisoned people and their environment for hundreds of miles, perhaps forever. On my return journey, I stopped at Honolulu Airport and picked up an American magazine called Women's Health. On the cover was a smiling woman in a bikini swimsuit, and the headline, "You too can have a bikini body." A few days earlier in the Marshall Islands, I'd interviewed women who had very different bikini bodies. Each had suffered thyroid cancer and other life-threatening cancers. Unlike the smiling woman on the cover of the magazine, all of them were impoverished, all of them the victims and guinea pigs of a rapacious superpower that is today more dangerous than ever. Now, I relate this experience really as a warning and to try and break a silence, rather to break a distraction that has consumed so many of us. The founder of modern propaganda, Edward Bernays, described this distraction, I quote, as, and I quote, the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the habits and opinions of democratic societies. He called it an invisible government. Now, we're meeting this evening on the campus of a great university, storehouse of knowledge, surely a centre of debate and free speech. But how many studying here are aware of the story of bikini and its critical relevance to their lives today? How many are merely trained to respect propaganda? How many of us are aware that a world war has already begun? True, at present it's a war of propaganda, of lies and distraction, and of censorship by omission. That can change overnight. Let me give you one example of this propaganda. In 2009, President Obama stood before an adoring crowd in the centre of Prague, in the centre of Europe, and he pledged himself to make, and I quote, the world free from nuclear weapons. People cheered and some cried. A torrent of platitudes flowed from the media. Obama was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. It was all fake, he was lying. The Obama administration almost immediately launched a program to build more nuclear weapons, more nuclear warheads, more nuclear delivery systems, more nuclear factories. Nuclear warhead spending alone rose higher under Obama than under any other American president. The cost over 30 years is estimated at $1 trillion. A mini nuclear bomb is planned. It's known as the B-61 Model 12. Sounds like a Volkswagen. There's never been anything like it. One of America's top generals, General James Cartwright, the former head of the Strategic Air Command, has said, and I quote him, "Going smaller makes this nuclear weapon more thinkable." In the last 18 months, the greatest build-up of military forces since World War II, led by the United States, is taking place along Russia's western frontier. Not since Hitler invaded the Soviet Union have foreign troops presented such a demonstrable threat to Russia. Ukraine, once part of the Soviet Union, has become a CIA theme park. Having orchestrated a coup in Kiev, Washington effectively controls a regime that's next door and hostile to Russia, a regime rotten with Nazis. Literally, prominent parliamentary figures in the Ukraine are the political descendants of the notorious anti-Semitic OUN and the UPA fascists. They openly praise Hitler and call for the persecution and expulsion of the Russian-speaking minority. That's not what you read, of course, in the news. In Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, on Russia's frontier, the US military is permanently deploying combat troops, tanks, weapons. Now, this extreme provocation of the world's second nuclear power, Russia, is met with silence in the West, especially in Australia, the most silent of all, the land of willful ignorance. What makes the prospect of nuclear war even more dangerous is a parallel campaign, propaganda campaign, against China. Seldom a day passes when China is not elevated to the status of a threat. Count the American admirals who fly in with their scare stories about China. Each has given unctuous, uncritical front-page treatment. According to Admiral Harry Harris, the Pacific commander, China is, and I quote, building a great wall of sand in the South China Sea. What he's referring to is China building airstrips in the Spratly Islands, which are the subject of a dispute with the Philippines, a dispute of little consequence until Washington pressured and bribed the government in Manila, and Admiral Harris launched a propaganda campaign called Freedom of Navigation. What does this mean? It means freedom for American warships to patrol and intimidate and dominate the coastal waters of China. Try to imagine the American reaction if Chinese warships did the same off the coast of California. I made a film called The War You Don't See, in which I interviewed distinguished journalists in America and Britain, reporters such as Dan Rather of CBS, Raggy Omar, the BBC, David Rose of The Observer. All of them said that had journalists and broadcasters done their job and questioned the propaganda that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, had they not amplified and echoed the lies of George W. Bush and Tony Blair, the invasion of Iraq might not have happened, and hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children would be alive today. The propaganda laying the ground for a war against Russia and China is no different in principle, but a lot more dangerous. Name a single journalist in Australia, an academic, a politician of any party, who has publicly and vociferously asked why China is building airstrips in the South China Sea. The answer ought to be glaringly obvious. The United States is encircling China with a network of bases, ballistic missiles, battle groups, nuclear-armed bombers. This lethal arc extends from right here in Australia to the islands of the Pacific, the Marianas, the Marshalls and Guam, to the Philippines, Thailand, Okinawa, Korea, and right across Eurasia to Afghanistan and India and Pakistan. Look at the map. America has hung a noose around the neck of China. Australia, in America's pocket, is beckoning war with our greatest trading partner. Incredibly, none of this is news. Censorship by omission, silence by media, then war by media. In 2015, in high secrecy, Washington and Canberra staged the biggest single air-sea military exercise in history, known as Talisman Sabre. Its aim was to rehearse an air-sea battle plan, blocking sea lanes such as the Straits of Malacca and the Lombok Straits that cut off China's access to oil, gas, and other vital materials from the Middle East and Africa. Silence. In the circus known as the American presidential campaign, Donald Trump is being presented as a lunatic, a fascist. He's certainly odious, but he's also a media hate figure, and that alone should arouse our skepticism. Trump's views on migration are grotesque, but no more grotesque than those of David Cameron or Tony Abbott or a couple of serving ministers in the current Turnbull government.
God damn it, somebody got to
It's
say it.
not Trump who is the great deporter of people from the United States. but the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Barack Obama. According to one respected liberal commentator, Trump is, and I quote, unleashing the dark forces of violence in America. Unleashing dark forces? Really? Is he kidding? This is the country where toddlers shoot their mothers and the police wage a murderous war against black Americans. This is the country that has attacked and sought to overthrow more than 50 governments, many of them democracies, and bombed from Asia to the Middle East, causing the deaths of untold numbers of people. No country can equal this record of violence. It's systemic.
Tell me you was listening to some David Icke, yo. Oh my God. I sell all the art that is bought. And I have a lot of art here, so people don't buy all of it. Yeah, David Icke will, whoa. Like I said, that's the first shit I read, yo. Like, The Biggest Secret. I was reading that shit, I was like, what the fuck? What? And that shit was like right before really I got on the internet hard body. Like, I ain't even had a cell phone then. I probably did have a cell phone. But I wasn't on internet. I mean, I wasn't on like social media, none of that shit. Never used Google or, you know. I can remember the first time I watched YouTube. I was like, what the fuck is this? It's like YouTube. Like, what is it? Just videos. Like, it's a website with just videos? Like, yeah. Alright. But once I figured out how to use YouTube, oh boy, I done watched so many damn documentaries. I'm fried. Oh, man. I'm not really trying to do Dragon Ball Z, bro.
And most of America's wars against defenseless countries have been launched not by Republican presidents, the Trumps, but by liberal Democrats, Truman, Kennedy, Johnson, Carter, Clinton, and Obama. In 1947, a series of National Security Council directives described the paramount aim of American foreign policy as, and I quote, a world substantially made over in America's own image, unquote. The ideology was Messianic Americanism. We were all Americans, or else. Heretics would be converted, subverted, bribed, smeared, or done away with. Donald Trump is undoubtedly a symptom of this, but he's also a maverick. He said the invasion of Iraq was a crime. He doesn't want to go to war with Russia and China. How ironic. The danger to the rest of humanity is not Trump, in my view, but Hillary Clinton.
What?
She is no maverick.
Let me find out.
She embodies the resilience and violence of a system whose vaunted exceptionalism is a form of fascism with an occasional liberal face. As election day draws near, Clinton will be hailed as the first female president, regardless of her crimes and lies. Just as Barack Obama was lauded as the first black president and liberals swallowed his drivel about hope. And the drool goes on, described by The Guardian columnist Owen Jones as, quote, funny, charming, with a coolness that eludes practically every other politician, unquote. Obama the other day sent drones to slaughter 150 people in Somalia. He kills people frequently usually on Tuesdays, according to the New York Times, when he's handed a list for death by drone. That's cool. In the last presidential campaign, Hillary Clinton threatened, and I quote, to totally obliterate Iran with nuclear weapons. As Secretary of State under Obama, she approved the overthrow of the democratic government of Honduras. Her almost gleeful destruction of Libya in 2011 qualifies her as a Class A war criminal. When the Libyan leader, Colonel Gaddafi, was publicly sodomized with a knife, a murder made possible by American logistics, Clinton gloated over his death. He came, he saw.
See, I can agree with a lot of his facts, but then some of his shit is like, oh, Obama started the war in Iraq. No, Bush Jr. started the war in Iraq, so that was a lie. But, you know what I'm saying, if you're going to play this game like, oh, our government is so bad, our government is so terrible, then you know that shit is a blanket, and you're still trying to hold Trump as like, oh, the guy to change it. Because, you know, it's Trump now. Nah. That's what I try to tell black people with fucking Obama. Don't fall for that shit, yo. Don't vote for this dude. Man. Shit, they done got him. Damn, they got him. And then what happened? Niggas still live in the ghettos. Ain't shit changed. You know what I'm saying? And plus, you can't really change the social fabric of a nation in fucking 8 years. That's why Putin has been president for as long as he has. That's why Assad has been president for as long as he has in their country, because they got different laws and, you know, different rules and shit. Putin been president of Russia for 11 years or some shit, 12 years or some shit. You know what I'm saying? That's how you make change, though. You know what I'm saying? That's how you make real change, when you got someone in the seat for that long, with the same ideas and trying to push the country in the same direction for over a decade, instead of, you know what I'm saying? You get 1 decade, well, not even a whole decade going this direction. They get, you know, another decade going this direction, and you pulling back and forth, and you never go in one direction for long enough to really do shit. Not saying that, you know, we should have presidents, you know, who have more than 2 terms or whatever, but I understand why other countries do that shit. Why fucking Saddam and all these motherfuckers, you know, was over their country for so long. And then if we kick our presidents out in like 4 years or 8 years, we need to kick motherfucking Congress out and everybody else out in the same amount of time.
One of her closest allies is Madeleine Albright, the former Secretary of State, who has attacked young women for not supporting Clinton. This is the same Madeleine Albright
who will
celebrate
side.
the
That's how you doing?
Of 500,000 Iraqi children.
I like to bash both sides. I like
Clinton's biggest backers are the Israel lobby and the arms companies that fuel the violence in the Middle East. She and her husband have taken millions of dollars from Wall Street. She's corrupt and violent, and yet she's about to be ordained the women's candidate to see off the evil Trump, the official demon. She's backed by distinguished feminists, Gloria Steinem in the US, Ann Summers in Australia. A generation ago, a postmodern cult, now known as identity politics, stopped many intelligent, liberal-minded people examining the causes and individuals they supported, such as the fakery of Obama and Clinton, such as specious progressive movements like Syriza in Greece, which portrayed the people of that country and allied with their enemies. Self-absorption, a kind of meism, became the new zeitgeist in privileged Western societies and signal the death of great collective movements against war, against social justice, against equality, against racism and sexism. Today, the long sleep may be over. The young seem to be stirring again, slowly, gradually. The thousands in Britain who supported Jeremy Corbyn as Labour leader are part of this awakening, as are those who rallied to support Bernie Sanders. Was that it?
See, honestly, if Bernie wouldn't have dropped out, I probably would have voted for Bernie.
Closest ally, his shadow treasurer, John McDonnell, committed a Labour government to pay off the debts of piratical banks and to continue so-called austerity. No real change there. In the US, Bernie Sanders has promised to support Clinton if or when she's nominated. He too has voted for America's use of violence against countries when he thinks it's right. He says Obama has done a great job. No real change there. In Australia, we have a kind of mortuary politics in which barren parliamentary games are played out in the media while refugees and Indigenous people are persecuted and inequality grows, along with the danger of war. The Turnbull government has just announced the so-called defence budget of $195 billion. That is a drive to war. There was no debate, none. Silence. Why? In Australia, as in most Western countries, there's now a permanent government with two main competing factions whose social, economic and foreign policies are almost identical. Elections are now theatrical episodes in which copycat policies are ratified. As in war by media and silence by media, we now have democracy by media, and that's fake too. What has happened to the great tradition of popular direct action? Where is the courage, political imagination and commitment required to begin the long journey to a better, just and peaceful world? Where are the acclaimed artists, writers, playwrights, filmmakers in Australia? Perhaps enjoying their federal and state government prizes and patronage. But they're silent too. Of course, there are very honourable exceptions, including those who sponsored this meeting tonight and those who fought tenaciously for justice, for refugees, and those who fought tenaciously for justice for Indigenous people, and those who last week exposed the Baird government's attacks on the right to protest and of free speech. What they showed was that real dissent is becoming a crime. And that is the challenge for everyone here tonight. They, governments, elites, those who seek to control our lives, must not get away with it. Break the silence, or do we wait until the first nuclear missile is fired? Thank you.
Alright guys, I'm out.